Okay, here I have this old Astor radio. It's got the Astor badge here with a little swan on it. When I first saw this, it belongs to a friend who got it in some junk off his brother. When I first saw it, I thought it looks like it was possibly an old car radio, because it looks like it's got a couple of mechanical connections, which the early ones had. Normally they don't have a speaker like this one, but this one's got a speaker. But a lot of them had like this box. You'd mount it down below the dash or something, maybe in the back somewhere, and then you'd run some cables, mechanical cables, to a little front panel that mounted under the dashboard, and it'd have the knobs, one for tuning, one for volume, and maybe a little radio dial in between. Maybe it might, I think some of the early ones had just a couple of knobs and that was it. Because the radios were so big, they weren't in-dash units, and I've since found out a little bit about it. I've actually pulled this thing apart. It's just pressed together metal covers, so you just prise them apart. There's no screws or anything. It's got this wire hanging out one end, which this one actually comes out of one hole and goes into another, which I don't think it should do. And there's some terminal here and another hole, something here. Not sure what that is, but I think that might actually be an antenna tuning trim cap or something in there. Someone's added some wires. These don't seem to be factory. I'm not sure where the power's gone on this, unless that's something to do with the power. Maybe that's the power. These must be two separate wires, that's what it is, because I think the power wire might be this bottom one, and from memory these top ones was connections to the actual front panel, and I think one was for tone control and one was for a dial lamp from memory. So that must be, it's two separate wires. One's a cotton coated one and one's rubber. So it explains that would be the power. Now I don't know whether this is a 6 volt or a 12 volt. They made both versions. I don't know if this did have anything about, oh it does, oh that's handy. So this is the JL version. I was looking for a model number, but it turns out it's just this JL, and then 3169 must be the serial number. There's also a JM version, which is a 12 volt one, so the JL from memory I think is the 6 volt one, and these also came out in Holden cars. General Motors Holden made them, or rebadged them, and they were called an Airchief when they were they changed this badge here, but it looks like they have the same model designation, JL or JM. I did manage to find I think a service manual from Electrode Tenure or someone like that, and also there was a instruction manual on eBay for sale, which has most of the pages showing on that. Whoops, I've covered this up. Got that jammed in there, but it's got this other connection. This is the antenna connection, I believe. And it's actually one of these old, when I looked at it, I thought, I wonder if that's one of those old BNC type, or bayonet connectors, I mean. Not a BNC, and that's what it is. It's actually like a little light globe fitting with the two pins. So you push it and rotate it, just like it's got the little hole there, it goes down, and you turn across and a little spring pushes it back up. So you don't see them in things very often. I believe these came out around 1946. This one I found a date in it, which is 1947. So this one was definitely made in or around 1947, because one of the parts had that on it. I also found this label inside, which is a valve placement diagram. So it does have, then it says JL/JM. I didn't realise at the time that was the model number. I thought these were the model numbers, 283/279, but that might just be the label number. So it's got a few different valves in here, which are a bit hard to actually read. A 6V6G, I think that is, 6SM7GT, 6SA7GT/G, 6SK76T, 6SQ7GT/G, and then there's a vibrator there. So I knew as soon as I opened this up it was definitely a car radio, and the fact that I thought that was probably the voltage connection, but the fact it doesn't have a transformer and no obvious connection for like an external power pack. The fact it's in this oddball metal box also, and when I opened it up there is an actual vibrator in here. So this I had to use a few different size screwdrivers to just prise the back off. Now the back doesn't actually reveal much, except for this lovely Roller speaker, nice gold label on that. Roller Company of Australia, 8/0, reproducer, dynamic reproducer, registered trademark. See label for other patents, patent notices pending. And I think it was on the other side I actually found the date. A lot of these old Ducon capacitors, which I think is an Australian made brand. Something looking semi-cooked there. I don't know if that's just some old tar, or whether that's a capacitor that's cooked up or what that is. Doesn't look too healthy, whatever it is. So it's quite old, looks like mostly rubber coated wires and some maybe cotton. You can see the large tuning cap, and that's the volume control. I think it's got an on-off switch as well. So definitely old, bit of a choke there or something. But this is actually, this bottom side of the chassis is actually spot welded. This with all the circuitry on it, spot welded to the case. So that's when I realised you've actually got to prise the front off this thing to get into it. And that roller speaker, the magnet's so strong it wants to stick to something else in here. I'm not sure what the there's a transformer there, so got to be a bit careful with the wiring here. Make sure we don't damage the speaker. Someone's labelled them white and red, so maybe that's what that white, so that's what that white and red wire coming out there is hooked to the speaker. So someone probably had an external speaker hooked up to it as well. Whether that did it much good or not, who knows. I think, yeah, this is just a standard speaker, even though it's a very old one. It's not one of the ones with the coil in it. Oh, look, we've got a bit of a label here. Can't really read what that says, but maybe that's more that patent info and stuff they're talking about. There's probably a list of a whole lot of things like that. That's where the date is. It's got 5th of March 1947 on the actual speaker. I don't know if I can show that easily, but yeah, just around the rim of the speaker there. So that's got the date that was made. I'm not sure if I saw any dates on anything else. Often these transformers will have dates on them, but that one doesn't look like it does. And yeah, I may have to remove this speaker to actually do much more with this thing. We've got a vibrator and obviously various valves. It looks like it's a Philips mini watch, which a lot of Australian ones were. And this is the other side. We've actually got these sort of splined shafts here. They're where these two metal bits on the front go down. I sort of poked a screwdriver down them just to see how deep they were. Actually, that magnet will probably hold that there. And yeah, once I pulled it apart, there's actually these, it's almost like a Bakelite fitting or something on a bit of an extension shaft. That's off the pot, I think. Yeah, it clicks. And then you've got your volume control, I assume. There's quite a bit of range either side of the click, which is odd. But there's definitely some sort of spline shaft down in there. Same on the other one here. This goes to the tuning capacitor. If I turn that, you can see the tuning capacitors are moving. So at least that's all in working order. That hasn't seized up or anything. No, what does that say? No, that's just CBG81 or something. I've got some other interesting. That's another Ducon capacitor. Oh yeah, these old Ducons have got some interesting. I've never seen them with that badge thing on top, little symbol thing. So it's a bit earlier than most of the stuff I've seen in the past. Oh yeah, there is that hole on the end next to the. Oh, so that's not that other piece. So anyway, there's a hole on the end here. That must be where our antenna goes in. There is a little, what looks like a trim capacitor there. I did read a thing that said they did have something like that. Now what I haven't seen is this other hole actually, this metal one goes into some sort of plug there, which goes onto a wire, which looks like it goes down under the chassis there. And I was just about to say there's not one of those old license or whatever they are stickers, but this one does have one in it. So it's just hidden away. I can't really see what this other stuff. There's some sort of Bakelite thing or something sticking. Oh, maybe it's a switch or something. Ah, that's what that click sound is. Ah, okay, that explains that. So this isn't an on-off, I don't think, but as this pot comes around, the volume pot, it catches this little thing here with that little lever sticking out the side and clicks whatever that is. Oh, that's why it happens in the middle of the range and not like a switch pot at one end. So some sort of switch there. Maybe that's to do with the radio dial light. Now I've upset it because I've got it in the wrong position. What did they say? There was a tone control and a radio dial light or something, so maybe that turns the light on. Don't know. I mean, you still wouldn't think it would click in that position. That's a bit odd. But we've got the old arts and whatever label. We'll have to pull the vibrator out to actually see. I think they just unplug. See what that label says. It might have a date on it. Yeah, this is coming slowly. Ooh. Gotta be so careful with this stuff. So it's a Ferrocart vibrator. Ferrocart Australasia Proprietary Limited. Do not detach this label. 126 Grant Street, South Melbourne, Victoria. Packed 7318. That might be just the number of the person. It says Taz on that. Not sure it would be made for Tasmania for any reason, but don't know what that is. Could just be another person who worked on it. But yeah, they're an odd device with some contacts in there that basically you put a voltage in and it basically increases the voltage by making and breaking the contacts really quick. I forget exactly what the principle is that they work on, but it's quite a clever but simple bit of basic electrical theory that makes those work. And I don't know if I can see this label. I've got the soldering iron heating up, so I might have to try and unsolder this speaker and those other external wires maybe as well, just so I can safely work on it without damaging the speaker. But I'm only borrowing this, so I don't want to mess around with it too much at the moment, but I might even see if I can buy it. These have like this, so far we've only found this part of it, but if he has the dial part that went on the dashboard, this would be worth getting going again. Otherwise it's probably not worth a real lot as it is. Although if this chassis, this part of it works, it might be good for someone who has the other half but a faulty main unit. Oh, Arts and P, that's what it says. I feel so long since I've seen one of these little blue labels. This instrument was manufactured under a license granted by Australian Radio Technical. Oh, that's what ARTS stands for. Australian Radio Technical Service and Patents Company Proprietary Limited. In respect of patents, controlled by it for the reception in the Commonwealth of Australia and such territories, maybe something territories, and such territories as, yeah, May 4th, may from time to time be administered under mandate, maybe. If I touch this, I'm not sure if it's going to fall to bits. Mandate by the said Commonwealth of Sound broadcast. Said Commonwealth of Sound broadcast by wireless, but only for private or domestic use and not for operation for any public, I'd say, or commercial, probably performance or something. Something about the post office. Select Transfers, GW Green and Sons Proprietary Limited, Melbourne, and then there's some number on it, which I guess probably every radio has the same label. That 106933 would be the license for this particular one. And there's some box here, I have no idea what's in that. We've got almost what looks like a little ferrite pot core thing there. Look, does something go up into this box? And there's at least one wire that comes off the vibrator. I'm not sure if they had a transformer to go with those vibrators, is what they used to use the contacts vibrating to actually go into some sort of inductor or transformer. That's how they got the voltage to increase. I can't remember how they actually work. I never really dealt much with valve equipment. Yeah, they're right, that's a 6SK7 GT-G valve there, so don't know what the D label on it means. That's got a D on it as well. That's a Phillips Mini Watt, I assume that's probably another one. That's just they're actually metal base on those valves. That's a Bakelite base. Here's another one that's probably another Phillips. It's got the number 6SQ7 GT-G, so this looks like this thing might be on its original valves. Maybe they replaced them with the same types if they did ever replace them. There's a few numbers written down here. Oh, they're like a sticker on those Ducons. That's maybe they've fallen off in things I've seen before. There's a big IF can by the look of it, a few others here. Some sort of trimmer thing there by the look of it. Maybe. Oh yeah, this goes into another coil. So it must be the slug for that. That almost looks broken, but then again, I know it must be just an opening because there's a wire coming out of it. So at least I know this is a 6-volter. They've got these weird old resistors with a sort of spray painted, I don't know if they sprayed them on or someone hand put them on, with the colour codes are just great big bands on them. I don't know what condition a lot of these old Ducon caps would be in, but it wouldn't be very good, I don't think. That's also got a bit of that black, they look like they're inductors with some sort of black tarry stuff over them. So I assume this one's probably the same, but whether that was made like that or something's cooked over time, it's probably just some sort of tar or something they've used to. Looks to be an inductor in there, so I doubt it would be cooked. No, looking at it, it's not impossible. Very hard to tell whether that's just some sort of coating or whether someone's fried that. Certainly not looking the best. Probably have to cut the cover off. Whatever that tube, cotton tube or something they've used there. There's a lot of flux and muck around where that vibrator goes. But yeah, if I do get my hands on this, I just wanted to have a look inside it, just I've never seen one quite like it before. So I think these are polarised by a couple of thicker pins. That's how you work out the orientation. I guess I should have took more notice when I took it out, but I thought these were somehow polarised. A little rattly. These are all, yeah, looks like it's soldered closed. They're quite interesting. I've pulled one apart once before, and I think it's just like an electromagnet with a couple of, with some contacts, almost like a relay or something. But there's not much in them to see. Is that, oh yeah, that is a speaker transformer. I was going to say that's probably an output transformer, and it does go straight to the speaker terminal, so that proves that. A lot of these valve radios had a speaker transformer. Normally it'd have a power transformer, but this doesn't because it runs off low voltage and goes via that thing. I might even remove those external wires. Get rid of those. Don't know what that's meant to be. Is that maybe something to do with where the speaker sits? Very tempting to try and open that up, but I think it's all soldered shut. I'm not sure if the thing, I don't think the thing I downloaded had the circuit for it, which would have been interesting to see. I better put that label back in. That was sitting on there on the side of that box. That doesn't say what the box is. It's hollow, so I don't think it's a potted transformer or anything in there. And we've got this old mica, I think they were mica capacitors, these brown things. These are very common. Simplex, that's them. Simplex SM, they were common in old Australian things. I think that says paper capacitor, Ducon Australia. I wouldn't be surprised if the thing actually ran. Probably could be powered up and run. Don't know, the end on that one looks a little bulgy, but I think that's how they often are. They were kind of, a lot of these were probably still handmade or close to it. So they often look a bit wonky and stuff because just the way they were made. There's a great big mica cap in there. Another simplex one. So yeah, it's certainly an interesting old piece of equipment. I wouldn't mind seeing if I could actually get this part up and running, because it can be run just by manually turning these controls. Or if I could find something with a spline shaft of the right size that I could poke down in there, almost a wooden dowel or something would fit in there. I think it's bigger than the normal potentiometer shaft. But I couldn't find any pictures of what the control panel for these things look like. The one manual I did get a copy of just says that it comes as a separate part, so that's not much use. But yeah, certainly an interesting old bit of kit. If I can get these valves out easily. Wouldn't mind just having a quick look at these metal base ones. Yeah, it's slowly coming out, I think. I think I've really seen these metal base milliwatts before. A lot of dust and muck. You've got to be careful you don't wipe the type numbers off most of these. Oops, that little D label came off. But yeah, certainly looks to be in good condition, that one. Not that you can always tell. But it looks like this is basically a post-war era radio for your car. I know I did find an old Ferris one once. It was kind of shaped like about the size and shape of a letterbox, quite a large thing with a couple of slanted bits on the top, and that had the same sort of thing, connections for mechanical volume control and tuning control, obviously meant to be mounted remotely from the actual controls on the dash. And then really after that, this is I think only the second really old one I've seen with the actual separate controls. Then a lot of them went to like an in-dash radio, but it had the same sort of similar front size to a normal car radio. They used them in like the Volkswagens, early Volkswagens and other brands, and then it went into the dash and it sort of ramped right up at the back. So instead of just being like a flat pack like a normal car radio, it went in and got really sort of that thick or something at the back, and had a bunch of valves and stuff and a vibrator and everything in it. And I did see a couple of them, but any sort of valve car radio, quite rare. Pretty much everything you see is a solid state. I guess most of these, as soon as solid state ones came down in price and they were smaller and used less power and probably more reliable and stuff, most of these probably got chucked away and upgraded to something better, or people upgraded them to a cassette player as well or something, or an FM radio, because these are AM only of course. But I can't really see any other writing on this thing anywhere. Just like a part number on those IF cans. It's possible that transformer has a date on it somewhere. Oh, we've got something down the side, but no, it's just a part number I think. For some reason a lot of Australian made stuff, they stamp the dates on the transformers. Usually the easiest way to date them. And someone's actually, I think they've written the valve number there. That'd be a 6SG7, is it? Or SQ. Oh, that's sorry, it's an SQ, because that's, I think it's a Q on top. What that valve placement thing say? 6SQ. So it even had it there, and someone still wrote it down anyway. Not sure why. I mean, it looks like an ET9 or something. Might have been the person LT9. No, it is ET9 I think. Might have been whoever actually made this chassis or something, or quality control or something. But yeah, it's an interesting old unit. And it would be interesting, yeah, the power cable's actually, the insulation's gone on that because it's rubber. So that's already shorting onto the case. And that goes right down here. So that's what goes into this coil thing. So that's like, must be the first interference suppression type coil. Very unlikely that, I mean it's possible it's been fried I guess, but I doubt you'd get an inductor which is like almost 1mm diameter wire or something, somewhere around there if it's like this one. It'd be very hard to get that hot enough to cook it without having something else far worse go wrong in here. So I think that's just made that way and it's got some sort of tarry stuff. Yeah, it doesn't smell burnt, so that's just something to I don't know why they bother putting that on there, but I think we'll say that's alright. So I might see if I can get this radio off him, or see if he's happy for me to try and power it up and see what it actually does. I don't know how you can really current limit one of these sort of ones. It's probably best just to hook it up, and or maybe hook it up with the valves removed. But yeah, I'd be pretty confident just to actually hook this thing up and see what it does. It's not like there's a power transformer you can burn out or any rare bits like that. I mean, I guess there's the speaker output transformer. Could be worth pulling. Where does that go? Blue and red wire. That's the red one, I think, and the blue. Does that go to this terminal? I think it does. Do they hook back to this valve? I think they might. Yeah, I think that valve there is probably the audio out, which does look rather black, but I assume that's meant to be like that. I don't know, 6v6, yeah, I think a 6v6, little that I know about valves, I think that was an audio. I think a lot of these were blackened on the inside. That's a Radiotron made in Australia. I think, oh, where's that other one? That looks similar. Oh no, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just dust. It looks more blackened on the top. That's often just the getter. They have a thing to burn all the, anywhere you can see the bit of the silvery stuff there. That's like a metal thing, that's a little ring thing that's got some sort of, I don't know what it is, but some sort of like chemical stuff in there or something. When they put a voltage into it, it actually burns. And that just, any oxygen that they haven't sucked out when they vacuumed it out, that'll burn the oxygen. And then they got no worries about oxygen in the valve, because you don't want that in one of these with a heater. It'll burn the heater out and probably do other stuff that stops it working. I guess I should have a quick look. Oh good, I hope that's not white inside that valve, because that's a sign it's had air in it. And if I'm not careful pulling this out, it'll definitely end up with air in it. There's something that looks corroded in this one, which... Oh yeah, so we've got a bit of white stuff there. And there's a bit of white... Oh, that's a mica. Often if you see anything white inside a valve, it's a sign that air's got in there, but I don't know with this one. It's on the mica where it touches the glass, it seems, and then there's some sort of splattered... Oh, here's another one. Yeah, this mic is even wider. I think it's... Ooh. Just the label. I thought something moved in the glass then, but... Yeah, very hard to tell. You'd really have to fire the thing up and see if it runs or not. But I don't think that's been gassed. Usually it's the ones with a little... these ones have got the... where they've evacuated the air out of it down the bottom. A lot of the more modern ones have a little teat thing on the top there, and if that gets broken or anything, you'll get air in there and things will go white. I think the actual getter part, where is the getter on this? Well, that's the top bit. That black stuff on the top, I assume, is where the getter was, and that hasn't gone white, so that's a good sign, I think. Weird for the mica to go like that. I've never seen that in a valve, but they could have been like that from manufacturer, who knows, from the factory like that. Just gently seat that back in there. Try not to rub the type number off the top. Oh yeah, this other one's the same. That's got kind of white patches on the mica, so maybe that's the thing with Phillips valves or something. That one hasn't really got any mica touching the glass. Well, it does have a bit. Oh, that's an odd looking... Oh yeah, it's just got some sort of shielding around it. Yeah, these are probably a bit earlier valves than I've really seen before. They're not the usual thing that you see. I've seen more of the 50s and 60s sort of era stuff, probably mostly 60s TVs and radios and stuff, and I never really worked on repairing any of them. It was more just to pull a few parts out of them and stuff when people were chucking them out, and just have a look at what they're made out of. Yeah, some of the old TVs and radios of the later valve era had some like wire wound resistors and even these potentiometers and stuff that sometimes be worth saving, but often they were quite high value oddball values and stuff, like sometimes up in the mega ohm range I think, and hundreds of K and stuff, so they weren't much use in modern stuff. Now we've got some sort of trimmer cap there, I think they were, and a couple of trim caps there. Oh, were they some sort of coil? I can't remember now. Looks to be mounted on rubber grommets or something, which are gone hard if they are rubber. Oh, maybe it's a couple of bits of metal with rubber in between. But yeah, interesting. So this would have been not long after World War II this was made. And around the time the first Australian cars were made, so these were used in the, like the FX Holden and FJ Holden. Obviously GM would be trying to sell, or GMH, General Motors Holden, would be trying to sell their Airchief branded versions, and there'd probably be a lot more collectible. People would be after those for the restoring old Holdens, whereas because this has got an Astor badge on it, it would have been just sold for general use to put in whatever car you happen to have. So this one's probably not all that collectible, but certainly interesting. But again, you could, if you had one of these, I guess just swap, depending what the paint colour is like on them, you could just swap the covers and the speaker, or just the covers alone. That's something else I was going to look at. And I guess you can make it into an Airchief, or even just swap the badge. I think the badge is actually maybe soldered on. That's interesting where that badge is. They've actually soldered it. I thought maybe it was a screw on the back of it or something. God, they actually soldered it in there. Lovely badge on it. I really like the swan, and it's starting to corrode a little bit and go green, but, and some of the speaker cloth's a little damaged. I thought it was going to be pretty bad condition, but I think the speaker coil, I can see a little bit of damage there, a little bit of a fold or tear or something, probably a little tear in it. Although, is that going to go back and forwards? Yeah, I think that might be alright. I could almost, although they've soldered the damn speaker in as well. Maybe, oh yeah, and that's got a terminal there, it's actually got a terminal soldered on. So I guess they soldered the badge while they actually soldered a terminal to earth the speaker out or something to, but they've actually soldered the speaker again here. You can see where they've actually scraped the steel a bit and then soldered that on. Yeah, here, same thing here, they've actually scraped the metal back. So that's a bit of a worry. So I can't just pull that out. Oh yeah, that is definitely moving up and down. It's making a little bit of scraping sound, but I think that's just because I'm pushing on it. Probably isn't perfect, but probably quite usable, that speaker. And yeah, this case is amazingly tight fitting. Just this press fit where it fits on a little flange thing there. They've got little dots sticking out, I guess help push into it, but I was amazed how well it holds together. There's not a single screw holding the cover on. So quite well engineered in that sense. It actually worried me a bit pulling it apart, whether I should do that, whether I should just push on it and see if it comes apart. Someone, you could see where they bent some of this out, and must have been on the back cover. Whoever got into it originally, yeah, bent that right out. I think somewhere, yeah, that's a bit bent out as well, and there's a few bulges in the case where someone's got into it. But if you just carefully put a screwdriver, start with a small one and put it in the gap there and twist it sideways. I think I started with a really small one, just sort of prising it under a bit and just levering it, twisting the screwdriver, and then got to a bigger one, and eventually had to get up to a really big one. You just keep prising and they do pop off okay. Looks like it might have had a label on here at some stage, but that's long gone. But that could have just been where it's sitting on something, who knows. But I think I'll solder this speaker back on. I might just leave it actually for now. I'll have a talk to him and see what he wants to do, and see if we can find the actual front panel for it. But otherwise it might be a good one to sell for parts or something. But I would like to apply power, and probably have to replace that particular cable that's rubber coated. I'm don't know if you can get replica rubber coated cable these days. Probably not worth the bother, but that's definitely going to have to be fixed because it's just going to shorten the chassis. But the other cables look okay. I still don't know if that's a tone control or what that switch does. Would be nice to have a circuit of this thing so I know what the hell I'm actually dealing with. I can't actually see anything coming out of that. Oh yeah, there's a wire there. No, that's this green one. So that's the volume control. That goes up there. Oh, it's just the capacitor on the top, another Duke on. So we've got this switch thing. It's like a soldered box, unless one wire goes in one side and one came out the other, or it switches to ground maybe. Something tells me this one hasn't been set up for a tone control. So I think it's just, well, I guess what I could do is check it. Might be time to remove this old insulation tape. And maybe see if that shorts the ground or something. Because from the look of it, there's no wires coming out of this box, so really all that switch can do is short this wire to ground, I would think, or the chassis. Where's that little switch gone? Bingo, that's what it does. Well, at least I know what that wire is. So this one obviously is a bit different to the model. So there's probably no wire, because yeah, that's the other terminal, which is chassis. Although that might be to hook to the chassis of the car, maybe as a separate earth. So that, I wonder what it switches, because it switches a fair way through. So the volume is minimum there. You've got probably half the turn. Click. Or maybe a third. It's probably about a third of the total turn. And it switches something. Why would you switch something on with the volume control when you get about a third of the way through it? I have to have a think about that, I think. You short something to earth. It's got to be volume, because it's a potentiometer in there and you've got to have a volume control on a radio. Again, a circuit would be handy to work out why they have a wire. It gets the earthed out at a certain amount of volume. Like, you think if they had a dial lamp or something, you'd just hook that up to, I guess in these early cars you probably didn't have like a position, like a park lights position, and whether they even had park lights on those cars, I'm not sure they even did. I think the FX Holden only had like a lot of cars that only had like a single brake light in the middle of the boot and two headlights, and I think that was it. Could be wrong, but I don't think there were any park lights or anything. So cars of that era didn't really have more modern features on them, like indicators and park lights and stuff, let alone reverse lights or anything. Although we've still got, the other problem is, what's this other? Well, I got it apart, I've got this other connector here. So we've got an antenna on that side, we've got an antenna tuning cap. Those wires were added after the factory. We've got power in, almost definitely there. A wire switch to earth, an earth terminal itself, and a really weird plug type, almost like a banana plug or something's meant to fit in there, but it's got a metal outer. And that comes down a wire which goes through the hole in the chassis here. And you have a speaker somewhere. Oh god. Hey, I can see it. Must be this wire here. That's the one. Which, is that it there? That's it. Comes all the way over here to a capacitor, so it could be a tone controller or something. I think it only goes to this Ducon capacitor, which goes to, is that a pin on that valve? Or just a terminal on the valve socket? You know, I think that would connect to one of the pins on the valve, although there's no pin in that socket, so it's probably a spare, they've used a spare terminal which has these resistors and a yellow wire that goes all the way over here somewhere and disappears, possibly into this terminal block. Oh yeah, it does go into this terminal block, so yeah, no idea what that is. I think we can assume this is power coming in here through a couple of, or at least one big inductor. I think does it go to the other inductor? No, it goes to the end of this cap, or it does go to an inductor, and this thing I think as well. Plus this big cap. Does this have, I don't think it has any obvious electrolytic capacitors in it. Oh yeah, it has those Ducons, that's right. So they're up over there, they're nowhere near, and we don't know what's in that metal box. But it looks like this red wire here comes out of that metal. Oh, there's a few wires going to that metal box. This red, oh, that's in very poor condition too. So this is the thing you've got to watch, is these rubber coated wires haven't completely deteriorated. And yeah, then it goes to the, look, at least two wires go to the vibrator. So it's definitely something to do with the vibrator. Why these capacitors are like rated at 200 DC VWs. So I don't know what the I forget what VW means, DC volt. But what the W, I don't think it's watts, but there was some weird terminology they used. Yeah, it looks like it's got a negative band on that cap, so I don't know what these paper caps here, they've all got, looks like they're actually polarised, so maybe they are the equivalent of electrolytic capacitors in the modern world. Yeah, 600 volts, maybe that's just because they had, well, some of this radio will run on high voltage, I guess, but that looks like that comes in off the, well, it should be the 6 volts, assume that is connected. I think it's connected to that, but maybe it's not. Pretty sure it's connected to the voltage in terminal. Yeah, it is, I'm pretty sure. Maybe these things are all sort of interference suppression on the power line. But it could just be that because most radios, they just made high voltage versions because that's what they used in pretty much everything. And it was only the rare situations like these car radios that they had used for lower voltage. Who knows? But yeah, I might just leave this apart for now, and I'll have a talk to him and see what he wants to do with it. And if we can find the front panel, it might actually be worth something. If not, I might just have a play with it, power it up, see if it runs or not. And yeah, I think I'm going to have to check any of those rubber coated wires just to make sure they can't short out. Most of them are cotton coated, I think, or some other sort of coating. Probably rubber with then cotton over it, so they're alright, but these, some of these bits, like I can see this yellow one, oh yeah, that's probably shorting on whatever terminal because it's not even connected to that. Oh yeah, these are in terrible condition. Not sure if they're actually broken right through, but the rubber is pretty heavily deteriorated. And cracking, so yeah, it may not actually expose any wire yet, but I think you'd want to check each one of these to make sure it isn't shorting on any of the things that it touches. And you might even have to replace a few links before it's powered up. But I would love to plug it in and see what it does. And see if it still goes. Well, that's for another day. Thanks for watching. Okay, I'm back on this old Astor car radio. If it'll focus on that. Whoop, now my magnet's stuck. And I've got permission to actually hook this thing up and see if it powers up and runs. I probably should ideally use some sort of current limiting when I do that, but I think I'll just get this old rubber coated wire where it's not going to short onto the chassis. So I'll poke it back through the hole. Maybe I should just cut most of that off, would be make even more sense. Okay, got the cutters. Just about every tool I have has moved since I last worked on this thing. So I think I'll get rid of that bit of wire because that's absolutely stuffed. So I think it's good for scrap metal now. And if I poke this little end bit back in here, I should be able to pull that back up because it runs right down the side of the radio. There's like little clips or something here. What are they? I think it just goes underneath, doesn't it? If I could just get it to one side, I need a longer screwdriver for a start. Push it to one side, yeah, and that comes up. I might even pull it right out the bottom of the chassis. I'm not sure if there's enough room. Let's have a look. So that goes down to this inductor here, which feeds the other inductor and a pot core and into this area where the vibrator is. I'm not sure what sort of current these things drew, but probably be a couple of amps at least, I would think. But I might be wrong. I guess with all those valve filaments, they've got to add up to a bit. And I know some of these other wires didn't look the best here. There were some cracks in insulation somewhere. What was it up here? I forget where it was now. But there is a lot of rubber coated wire in these things that really wants completely replacing. But I don't think any of it's really shorting onto the chassis or anything. But it always pays to give it a quick check over. And yeah, normally you probably should take a few precautions, but this thing's not anything too important to the owner, so I think I might just hook it up. I've had plenty of good luck with just hooking valve stuff up, and usually you find it just runs, or at least partially runs without any fireworks or anything. There is a risk you could damage one of the valves or something, I guess is why people are so cautious about these things. I might just pull that rotted rubber off there, I'll trim that copper off a bit. And that was just the switch wire, that just goes to ground, so I don't need to care about that. We got an antenna wire, I'll just get that off the chassis just in case. Now, I might just leave the speaker disconnected for the minute, just while we see if this thing actually does anything. Might stand it up like that, and I can hook up the power supply. I'm pretty sure these are negative ground as well. I'm sure that's what it said in the manual, so I think we're safe to. Could even hook onto that terminal, I guess. I'll hook to the chassis just to be sure. And I'm definitely outputting around 6 volts. I might just quickly hook it up and see what it does. Well, we got a vibrator. So that's a good sign. It's actually pulling over 6 amps by the look of it, or over 5 amps, what my power supply can do. But you can hear that vibrator start up, so that's a good sign. I guess ideally you would put all the valves and get the vibrator running and see what voltage it's putting out, but I don't have a circuit or anything, and I'm not very familiar with valve gear, so I wouldn't even know what sort of voltage we should have coming out of that. The other thing with valve stuff, of course, is even though it looks like it's just electronics, low voltage stuff, this is just a car radio. You've got to remember this vibrator is probably putting out 200 volts. I'm not sure what they put out, but it's fairly high voltage. So you've got to be careful with these things. You've got to treat this, even though it's running off a DC power supply, treat it as a shock hazard. So I'll find that new power supply I bought, which I have no idea where I put it. And we'll try out this, whatever it was again, Coweets or something. Power supply that I did a review on, and see if that's got enough power to run this thing. So if we set our voltage to 6 volts, beautiful. I'll have a quick look and see what sort of current draw we get before I actually hook anything on permanently. guess I should switch. Does this have a load switch? No. Oh, we're only getting a quick flick and then nothing. That's interesting. Oh well, I know why, because we've got the current limit set. Well, I guess if I go to maximum on that and maximum on that, that would be the problem. It is only pulling about 4 amps or something. The other power supply was showing it's going down as it... We've got valves lighting up. Vibrator doesn't sound the best. Oh, we're going back up. Oh, the amps went up. The amps is going all over the place. Up to around 6 amps and back down below 4. But mostly between about 4 and 6 amps. I think these things, whoops, do get dodgy contacts in them, the vibrators. But I can see some valves lighting up, which is a good sign. So let's disconnect that. I guess I should pull it out of the power supply, but... So again, treating this as potentially dangerous as far as the voltages and currents go. Just being a little careful. Even the speaker should be transformer isolated, and it looks like it is purely out of the transformer, so I think that's fairly safe. But I'll hook the speaker up to it and just see if we get any sort of sound out of this thing. Be interesting to hear. That's usually the best way. Valve stuff, of course, takes a while to warm up. So you turn them on and they're basically completely dead, whether it's a TV or a radio. And then it might take over, 30 seconds, a minute. You'll start hearing sound coming up. Assuming we have volume. Well, now down here it starts about 3 amps and creeps up, which is probably not the best of signs. So it could be a faulty valve when it's warming up. Now we're sitting about 6 amps now. Quite steady. Oh, here we go. So it's warmed up enough to get a... And here comes the radio. Hash by the sound of it. And that does something... I can't get that little switch to flick across. There we go. I don't hear any RF noise. I thought I was hearing a bit, but I think it's more noise coming from the vibrator, maybe. And the switch does not want to work now. That's weird. There's something coming out of the... Where's our antenna? There's a lot like it could be working. There's not much AM signal around these days. Heterodyning or something noise. Current draws back around 4 amps and fairly steady now, so maybe the caps are reformed or whatever I need doing. No obvious channel that it's picking up. Where's my antenna lead gone? Put up to the TV antenna and see if we get anything. There's not very good reception in this shed because it's a metal shed. Can't get a lot of AM in here. Vibrator's still varying a bit in the noise it makes. Sounds like it's picking up some of the vibrator noise. It's probably why it's in a metal case, so it shields its antenna signal from itself a bit. Yeah, it's pretty deaf if it is working, as far as picking up RF signals goes. It's just a vibrator. Yeah. It is working. Uh-oh. Something died. Seems to have lost our audio output and our vibrator. Still put on 2 amps, so I probably should disconnect that. So that valve doesn't even seem to be warm. Is it a normal valve? That one's nice and warm. That one's nice and warm. A couple of these valves don't seem to be doing an awful lot. Oh, well, we got something out of it. But there's a fair chance this was replaced for a reason. You can hear that horrible noise mechanically it's making. I guess once it's in the box it's probably not as loud, but these would be annoying having one of these in your car, I would think. Because you wouldn't be able to hear that. Well, I guess in an old car you probably didn't hear it over the engine noise, but there was the potential to hear the vibrator noise, and it's back again. Oh, that's a racing channel, I think. What used to be 7HT. So, who knows, these probably didn't work very well out of the city anyway, being a valve unit. There might be pretty bad reception on them, but it is working. Probably should turn that down. It's not very nice to listen to as for the audience, but I'll just put that on its side so we can actually see it. Let's look it back up again on the flat. few of these valves have got a nice bit of orange there and there. The others, I think that one's orange on top. Others don't seem to be doing an awful lot. They don't actually feel warm, these others, so I'm not sure what the story is there. I think I can see a heater glow in that one, so they must have a heater in there somewhere. Because I don't think they are valves of some sort, so they've got to have a heater to emit electrons. They're unsurprisingly cold, these Phillips things. Black one's got a bit of warmth to it, so... And then it stops. Whoop. Oh, we went up to 10 amps then. The vibrator's still going. Something shot up to 10 amps to the limit of the power supply, and not that surprising given it may have been sitting around for decades, and probably has by the sound of it. It actually sounds like this, the owner of this radio originally had it. He may well have had it in a Holden of some sort, like an FX or FJ Holden. So this could have been sitting around for 30-40 years or more. So it's surprising it's going as well as it is. So it looks like it was probably working when it was removed, which is quite amazing. Oh, and we've lost it. Gone to current limit. Seems to be when I fiddle with the power there. You never know, this might have been an issue with the unit. Could be that the vibrator is... contacts are shutting together or something instead of vibrating. Anything's possible with these old things. It's away again now. Maybe that's why that vibrator's varying in sound. But it's going again now. Yeah, something that doesn't. Weird. Certainly doesn't lack any volume. Ooh, something's making a funny noise. Now, vibrator changes quite a bit in the noise, even though the current being drawn sitting around 5 amps. So it makes a high pitched noise and a low pitched noise, very odd. You can see the tuning gang here as I turn up, these plates move in and out, which changes the capacitance. Vibrator's going silly, it's dropping down to 3 amps and back up past 4. Don't seem to get much reception now. Oh, I probably should shut that down, it's starting to run a bit wonky there. But yeah, it does basically work, so that's pretty amazing. If I had a decent antenna here for AM, might get much better reception than that. But I am a fair way away from the transmitters. on the wrong side of the hill and in a metal shed at the moment, though. That was hooked up to a TV antenna, but that's pointing the wrong way and it's a UHF and all the rest, so it's probably not the best for getting a signal. Yeah, I can't smell anything that's hot, or as you can sort of feel a bit of radiating heat or something. It's actually, for a valve thing, it's actually surprisingly cool. And you get a bit of heat from these valves, but admittedly the vibrator's fairly warm. Not sure if they should run warm at all. I guess they probably would a little bit. Geez, that valve's pretty damn hot. Yeah, compared to the others, some of it barely warm at all. I mean, they should run fairly hot, but whatever that is, I wonder if that's part of the power section or amps. Oh, it's actually the amplifier, I think. Or is it? It's close to the transformer, but that doesn't mean a lot. It'd be nice if they listed not only what valves are in there, but what they actually do. Well, so that's the vibrator down there. It's this valve here. Is that the warm one? Yep. No, that one. It's right down there. Oh, so that's the vibrator over there. There's this other valve here, which, yeah, you can see they've actually put a shielding piece here, so this bit's all meant to be covered up. And then you got, yeah, your electrolytic capacitors and stuff. I think that little bundle of them, yeah, these Ducons, so they may well be pulling a bit of current while they form up. They feel alright at the moment, but this valve's getting pretty hot. Could be a bad sign. Or it could just be that that one's doing a lot of work, I guess. I don't know what we've actually got there. Let's see if I can get it out. Yeah, it's actually got the shield connected to one of the pins underneath. License only to extent indicated. Something. This is some sort of patent, New Zealand and Australia for this cover, I guess. The valve underneath looks like it's got some sort of... I wonder if that's just part of this heat cover thing. I guess if you take this washer off... Oh, this sprung bit, I guess you can slide the whole thing out anyway probably, but I'm not sure I should be fiddling with it. I don't want to risk breaking anything here. It's a bit prized there, but oh, it's only, oh, that's just the... That's not the button, because that's the top of the valve here. It must just have some sort of rubber ring around it, I think. It's got a label in there that says something. In theory, if I prise this apart, the valve should just slide out. It's trying to. But yeah, it's not a great design. I don't know if we can probably prop this ring off if I'm careful. It's only against the Bakelite base rather than the glass envelope, so if I pop that over there. Don't like working with these things because they're so fragile in theory. They're surprisingly strong in reality, but it's always risky and to break glass things. Carefully. Not the ideal way to do it, but if I just get that with the pliers and pull it over there, I should be able to get that off. That should take all the tension off. Must admit, I can't help pulling to bits and having a look just to see what the hell we got here, and that label's got me intrigued. Yeah, it looks like that rubber ring thing comes up with the metal. Yeah, it's just some sort of ring in there. Got another one of these D label. It's a Philips Mini Watt, made in Australia, 6X5 GT-G. Let's got this A239-15th of the 4th 47. That's still an original valve from 1947. I guess any of these ones that had the D label on them originally probably were. That's done an impressive amount of years work, although like I say, it probably didn't. It may have only done 30 years work or something before retirement anyway, if that. It's probably unlikely it even made it to the 70s in service, but you never know. Depends when the car was retired. Oh, I might just put that back together. And oh, did that have to go a particular way? Probably not. Oh, what does it say there? It's got another Taz on it. Oh, that's Pat backwards. No, it is too. So it's got patent numbers for Australia and New Zealand. I thought it had something had Taz written on it in here. Try and preserve those labels. I'll put this back on. Crack the rubber out. Not surprising. It'll hold in there. And then if I can carefully put this, didn't get the earth on the inside, did I? Or whatever that is. I guess that would be the earth pin of the valve, I guess. And to get the shielding back to ground. Oh, there goes one of the labels. Done well, stuck to the side of a valve to last that long. Without getting completely fried. Yeah, if I get that under there, I guess that helps the shield by earthing it back into the chassis. Although, yeah, because the later valves, the little shield would poke down the side of the valve and into a little base piece around the base socket. That's right. And so that would be riveted or screwed to the chassis. So that would do your earthing via that by thing it pressed into. Whereas this doesn't have that. It just has a normal valve socket. God, that ring is actually surprisingly tight. It's really shrunk down once I've taken it off. So this is going to be fun to get back on by the look of it. It's getting there. If I could just get that last end bit on. The problem is the thing you're trying to put it on with gets in the way of getting it on. That's it. I think I've got it over the metal now. Yeah, that's it. I don't like that much at all. Way too tight for what it's doing. And then it's going to probably move inwards later as it goes down. Once we get past that rubbery bit. I can see why these went out of fashion. Very labour intensive, I would think. Oh, bit of rubber sticking up there. Whereas the other ones, you just plug the valve in. Admittedly, it needed another piece mounted on the chassis, but plug the valve in and then plug the socket into the bit around the valve. So this is certainly, I don't think I've seen one of this style before. And I guess that's a good reason not to mess with it. But now that I have messed with it, I'll try and get it back in place. Put this in back to the condition I found it in. Geez, that does not want to slide. A lot of friction there. Maybe I should be trying to lift this up a bit. I don't want to put too much pressure on the valve itself, so it's a bit iffy to do that. It really wants to stick where it is at the moment because it's got sharp ends on it, I guess, so it really does not want to behave itself. Yeah, if I get those ends to move, it seems to follow through then. But now that the problem has got to the end of this fluted bit, so it's probably going to get unhappy again because it's got to go up in diameter again. And if I can get that back part down, hopefully it'll follow. Oh yeah, it follows that through. Well, it did, but of course won't get one side down, other side goes up. Now we're there. Or at least to that lumpy bit. Yeah, pretty horrible idea. Don't know why someone would patent something this bad, but I guess it seemed like a great invention at the time. Just ease that over with a screwdriver, get it started on the other side, and we should be right from there. But yeah, this thing was definitely not an efficient way to do things, so that design would have gone in the dumpster fairly quickly, I would think. Someone's brilliant patent, and then someone came up with a much better system. Yeah, that's not sitting quite right. Yeah, we're there, I think. Might even be a little bit low on that, but That's pretty good. Now I've got to find the little key on the bottom of this. And there's a little hole in the socket there, in the centre hole. So the key lines are that, so we know we've got it in the right way. And in fact it's the only way it'll go in anyway. So yeah, that's interesting. Question is, can I poke this power? I might poke this power wire. Is that another hole? Yeah, the hole where it used to go under. For that, where they've stamped a bit out to hold the wire in place. I might actually see if I can get it out that hole, since it's too short now to come out its proper hole. And at least someone can hook power to it should they desire to do so without pulling at the bits. See if I can get that under there. But yeah, this thing would probably need a recap and some of this rubber wire replacing. And all the valves testing, all that sort of thing. I guess I can actually put the bottom cover back on it. Where is the bottom? Not sure if this was meant to go a certain way. We've got a hole there and a hole, it looks like a bigger hole there. Someone might have just drilled that out. What would that sit over? There'd have to be some sort of adjustment. I can't see one. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be anything it relates to that I can see. So I guess these prongs, I can only get some two prongs on one side. Oh, there's that little semicircular hole. Oh, yeah, that'll go where the... So there is something to tell you, can only go around a certain way. That semicircular hole in the bottom goes to the antenna connector. So at least that makes life a little bit easier working it out. Get these little tabs to locate. And hopefully I can push that on. A little on the tight side. There it is. That's back home. And I'll just have to hook the speaker back up. I won't bother putting those extra wires someone added to it back in place. Nice that someone had labelled the white and red for us already. Those wires are a bit messy there. Where I've just pulled them off. Ideally they probably should re-terminate them properly by cutting this old end off and putting a new one. They're just a bit of a mess because they've spread out with the solder. Now my solder's gone walk out, put it behind the power supply, is it? Yep. So I'll just try and melt that solder and get them get all the little strands back together. Close enough. Only got to go on a tag strip anyway, which is not exactly a fine little thing to connect to. Definitely old solder on that. The flux has an interesting smell. Something you don't get in the more modern stuff. I think if I just stand it on its end there with, try not to have it drop down and break all the valves, might be easier and safer to do this on the ground. That makes more sense. Yeah, and I can just reach the tag strip. Get a bit of heating to it. And that'll reconnect the speaker up. So yeah, it's sort of at least in close to working order. Obviously something this age you can't just put it in your car and your old, unless you want to just to display it, but you wouldn't go and put it in your car and hook it up to the power and try and use it again without getting someone who's a valve radio expert to at least have a good look at it. And you definitely want to know all the valves are working, because you know, they could be low emission or pulling too much current or anything. But obviously they don't seem to be shorted out or anything. Someone's probably replaced one in there in the past by the look of it, since they've written the valve number next to it. But I'd be interested to see just quickly if we get less vibrator noise with the covers back on, because I assume they would. Looks like that thing, or at least the electronics underneath it, are in a separate shielded box. which the bottom thinner cover actually attached to, or sort of electrically connected to. If I go for that earth tab, it's on 6 volts. Only problem is I can't adjust the volume now easily, but we'll see. Hopefully I left it tuned in and at a reasonable volume. Current's rising up. Yeah, that's the only problem. I don't know if I can get a screwdriver or something down there to... That one almost feels like it might work. Into that fluted bakelite or whatever it is. Oh, there we go. Can still hear a fair bit of vibrator noise. So again, it could be capacitors in there have failed and not cleaning the noise out electrically from between the power supply and into the audio stage. But yeah, it's been an interesting project. Just have a look at this. I couldn't resist pulling it apart and seeing what it actually was. When you see an oddball box like this, it's just one of those things. Obviously the Astor badge gives away a fair bit, and the fact it's got a speaker, but it could have been some sort of amplifier or something. But really Astor, I think, really just made televisions and radios, so just receiver type stuff. Probably things with record players built into them, but as well, maybe record player only, just an amp and a record player, but usually they were radio type stuff. I really like the badge on that. Quite a nice design back in the days when they used to put some fancy little details on their stuff, even though the rest of the thing's quite horrible looking really. Got the old hammer tone type finish in a sort of browny colour. Probably matched the old floor mats of the cars or something, or just dark so it could go under the dash. And yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen one of these BNC connectors, which I can't even get out now. Oh, there we go, that was probably already turned. Not BNC, I keep calling BNC bayonet. So yeah, bayonet connector, in theory you probably find a light globe about the right size to actually fit in there. But yeah, bayonet connectors, I have seen them before but very rarely. So it didn't take me long to work out what it was, but I can't remember the last time I actually saw something with one. I was probably a kid back then. And yeah, we've got our model number JL, and I think that's 3169 is the serial number. Yeah, I can read that a bit better now. I've rubbed some of the rust off it. Yeah, definitely 3169. So possibly they made 3,000 units or so of these at least. But then who knows? Well, this is a 47. I think they started in 46 and went through the early 50s or something with these radios. So who knows? But they could have started a serial number at any number. It's unlikely they started at number 1. And yeah, I'm half tempted to give that a slight little bit of a polish, which I probably shouldn't, but I don't think it's exactly that antique that a bit of brasso polishing it up is going to ruin anything. But I won't go too hard on it. I wouldn't mind just getting a bit of brasso on there and just gently removing some of the worst of the tarnish, that green stuff there. And a little bit of that black, which is probably more dirt than anything. Probably could have got it off with a bit of metho or something, but I really can't resist looking at that. It's not like it's some antique coin or anything, even though maybe to someone this is the holy grail of car radios, but So I won't polish it back to full copper colour. But this is the sort of thing I would have pinched off an old one if I ever saw it. Would have tried to get the badge off it, because that's such a nice badge. It's certainly something they don't make anymore. I guess it's a bit Art Deco with that sort of piece across with the Astor written on it there. Probably not too far out of that sort of era. Back before things got really ugly in the 50s and stuff, buildings and stuff, so that's rather nice. There's a little bit of damage or something under that O, or maybe it's just the way it was stamped out. I guess if I get the higher parts, just, oh yeah, I don't want to rub it too much, but yeah, just get that Astor bit. The letters, the raised parts actually showing a bit of copper, and maybe the old swan here. Just the raised bits would look rather nice. I think that's about as good as I want to get it. Actually, I can just use the other end of that cotton bud, I guess. Just gonna get something to wipe all that off, but yeah, that looks so much better. Even though it's not mine, I just couldn't resist doing that. But yeah, it's quite a pretty badge, that. I'll see if I can get a close-up picture of that one, because I really like that. Probably take a still photo, I think it'd be the best thing. But it looks a lot better with a bit of a clean up and some of that muck out of in between, but there is something on that O, or below that O, which I have no idea whether it was made that way or there's some bit of muck, but I don't really fancy. I think it was just made that way by the look of it. It's something in the middle when it's stamped out as, or been stamped out, I guess. This would have been bashed into a die or whatever, like a coin, I guess. It's almost like it's got a little bit of solder or something on it, or I think that might even be a bit. I wonder if they got some solder on it when they were soldering the back of it or before. But yeah, an interesting little radio. Something I probably won't ever see again, and I haven't seen one before, so just a little bit of fun to play with. It was almost, luckily I grabbed it because it would have been out in the pouring rain we had, because he just had it in a box of stuff out the back because he only just received it and had nowhere else to really put it, so at least I saved it from getting soaked. So I might get onto some vintage radio group or something and see if I can find out if it's worth something to someone, because I don't think the guy that owns it's ever going to do anything with it. I'll have to have a dig around. He's got boxes and boxes of stuff there that came with this. See if we can find the front dials, because it'd be really cool to get them with it and then get it to someone who can restore it, and you know, hopefully get it going again and put in a classic car or something. Even if it is just a display piece, it'd be better than nothing. At least it'll get preserved that way. Hopefully someone who has some of this cloth, something that looks similar to that, but you could, I guess, change that for something a bit more modern and fancy, even though it's still retro style cloth. And just that, and maybe a respray in the same type of paint, polish up the badge, and she'd make a nice little display piece. Especially, like I say, if you can find the bits that go up to the dash, you could at least make a good replica of it, even if you put Bluetooth into it or something. I know some people would be horrified by that, but that would be a lot more practical in the real world. I guess get something like this, disconnect all the valve stuff, but put it in place with the dials and stuff. Maybe put a modern little amplifier module in there, keep the original speaker, hook that up, use the volume, if even a newer volume control, back to the actual dash thing, and then just put a Bluetooth receiver in there or whatever, and then you can just use your mobile phone to send music to it. At least it would get preserved that way if it's being used, because this has just been sitting nothing under a house with a pile of other junk for who knows how many decades. So I'm all for modifying things, you know, especially if you can leave the original chassis pretty much intact and just hook power to a new little module that you sit in there without hacking. You're only basically connecting it to the speaker. You run your power connections out somewhere in one of these holes without making any new holes. I say you could possibly even put another volume control down the original thing, or in some way hook it up so that the dash little panel with a cable actually does your volume. It probably doesn't matter if you're going through a mobile phone, you can probably do it all through that anyway. But it would be kind of cool to have the actual controls working, even if the tuning doesn't, if you don't have a radio, but having the volume work on the dashboard, just so you've got that little sort of mechanical feature to play with, as you would in an old car, to try and get it somewhat like the original experience. But anyway, I'll see what I can do with this thing, and maybe add a little update if I find someone who's interested in doing it up or whatever. But I'll have to ask the guy if he even does want to sell it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does, because it's only going to collect dust otherwise, I think. So thanks for watching.